will be on the general election ballot despite an attempt to block her candidacy by an ally of current Mayor Tiffany Henyard, who is
a mayoral candidate being challenged. The saga surrounding embattled South suburban politician
Tiffany Henyard, the self-proclaimed super mayor of Dalton, has finally turned herself in after a shocking FBI raid exposed years of corruption that had been hidden from the public. While Henyard lived a life of luxury, her town of Dalton was sinking into financial ruin, with its residents struggling to make ends meet. Her extravagant lifestyle, funded by taxpayer money, is now crashing down, and she faces up to 25 years in prison for her actions. Henyard's downfall is making headlines as she faces 22 federal charges, including misappropriation and the concealment of millions of taxpayer dollars for months. The FBI had been tracking Henyard's activities, following subpoenas and rumors that hinted at her wrongdoings. They moved in after gathering enough evidence to take action, and what they uncovered was nothing short of scandalous. Henyard, once hailed as an untouchable figure, is now facing the consequences of her actions. Her long list of charges includes diverting town funds to support her own lavish lifestyle. One of the most egregious examples of her misuse of taxpayer money came in the form of a shopping spree. In September 2023, Henyard spent $7,700 at stores like Target, Walgreens, and Wayfair. Hardly the behavior expected from someone entrusted with public funds. But it didn't stop there. Henyard even refused to fly coach, opting instead for premium travel experiences, complete with a professional hair and makeup team. Meanwhile, the residents of Dalton were left to deal with their town's crumbling finances. In just 1 year, Henyard's administration burned through over $112,000 in travel expenses, depleting the town's $5.6 million surplus and leaving Dalton with a $36 million deficit. The financial collapse was swift and devastating. Henyard's corruption didn't end with personal spending. She used government funds to benefit her family, further draining the already struggling town's resources. A shocking example of this was a $561,000 payment for her mother's driveway, more than $500,000 for a single piece of pavement. Meanwhile, Dalton's police force was repurposed as Henyard's personal security detail, running errands for her while crime in the town went unchecked. Officers were assigned to follow her around like a VIP entourage instead of patrolling the streets. The once praised Henyard's reign of excess and corruption came to an end when a former police chief, who had witnessed the misuse of funds firsthand, could no longer stay silent. The whistleblower exposed the full extent of Henyard's wrongdoing, and the public finally learned the truth about how their hard-earned money was being squandered. As Henyard faces the consequences of her actions, the residents of Dalton are left to pick up the pieces of the financial disaster she caused. Their trust shattered by the very person they had elected to lead them.
Behind me, the doors are locked here, and there's a sign on the building right now that says it's closed. For how long? Neither residents nor employees.
The tenure of Dalton Mayor Tiffany Henyard has been rocked by explosive allegations of misconduct and taxpayer fraud, with the latest revelations painting an unsettling picture of her time in office. Despite having her credit card privileges revoked, Henyard threw a lavish $55,000 party for the town, featuring performances by artists Wyatt and Jay Holiday, who were paid $30,000 and $20,000 respectively for 30-minute sets. To make matters worse, Henyard spent an additional $36,000 on a sound system, staff, equipment, comedians, and even bouncy houses that cost $6,600. Just for an event that only about 70 people attended, outrage among residents has been growing. Jennifer Roberts, a concerned citizen, voiced her frustration, fuming over the blatant misuse of taxpayer money. Former trustee Valeria Stubbs also condemned the event, calling it a wasteful self-promotion scheme. Henyard's apparent disregard for fiscal responsibility has only fueled public distrust, with both taxpayers and federal investigators closely monitoring her actions. However, the real twist came when Henyard's former ally and ex-right-hand woman, Carmen Carlisle, stepped forward with damning evidence. Carlisle had witnessed firsthand what she described as Henyard's misuse of Dalton's funds over the course of 2 years. Initially silent, Carlisle became the key whistleblower, handing over a stack of receipts to federal authorities, shedding light on the mayor's schemes. Her testimony has been a bombshell, exposing the inner workings of Henyard's alleged fiscal mismanagement and her bold efforts to promote herself at the public's expense. Carlisle's revelations only added fuel to the fire. Critics like Stubbs emphasized the stark contrast between Henyard's extravagant spending and the limited turnout at community events. The public's outrage was palpable, with many demanding justice for the residents of Dalton who had suffered as their town's finances crumbled under Henyard's administration. Despite the mounting criticism, Henyard showed no sign of slowing down, a move that many believe will only add fuel to the fire of this unfolding scandal. The FBI's investigation, now bolstered by Carlisle's first-hand account, has placed Henyard squarely in the spotlight. Federal authorities are scrutinizing every aspect of Henyard's administration, from her lavish lifestyle funded by taxpayer dollars to her extravagant trips and her personal security detail, which often resemble the entourage of a Hollywood celebrity. The investigation is also delving into her financial dealings, including her commercial ventures and campaign finances. The web of connections involving Henyard and her political allies is being thoroughly examined, with authorities casting a spotlight on everyone who may have had a hand in the alleged corruption. The people of Dalton have long demanded transparency and answers about unexplained expenses and questionable decisions made by Henyard. Activists like Brittany Norwood have been vocal in their criticism, amplifying the frustration of residents who have watched their towns suffer under Henyard's administration. For these residents, the FBI's intervention feels like a long overdue response to their desperate pleas for assistance. However, many are left wondering why justice has been so slow in coming. Despite the mounting evidence and growing public outrage throughout the investigation, Henyard has maintained an image of business as usual, continuing to carry out her mayoral duties despite the mounting pressure and scrutiny. This defiance has only fueled public anger, as residents see her as increasingly disconnected from the reality of their struggles. The FBI, meanwhile, has reportedly been using advanced surveillance techniques to track potential wrongdoing, not just by Henyard, but also by her political allies as the investigation deepens. Rumors have been circulating that several others with ties to Henyard may soon face similar scrutiny. The scale of the FBI's probe has sent shockwaves through Dalton, with residents who have long seen their town teeter on the edge of financial collapse now grappling with the very real possibility that many of the people they once trusted may have been complicit in this web of corruption. Yet, in a surreal turn of events, Henyard stunned the town when she voluntarily turned herself into the FBI. One moment, she was carrying on with her usual glamorous persona, seemingly unaffected by the growing storm of controversy, and the next, she was stepping into federal custody. The abruptness of her surrender shocked Dalton residents, leaving them to speculate about her motives. Why would Henyard abandon her opulent lifestyle and surrender? So suddenly many believe that Henyard's decision may be part of a strategy to strike a deal with federal prosecutors. It's speculated that she could be offering to expose other individuals involved in her alleged schemes in exchange for leniency. If this is the case, it marks a dramatic shift in the scandal, as Henyard, once seen as untouchable, now faces the very real possibility of legal consequences. Her decision to surrender not only marks a turning point for her, but also signals a shift in the dynamic between Dalton's residents and their local government. Henyard's once untouchable image has been shattered, and her voluntary surrender has given the public a sense that, at least for now, there may be some semblance of justice on the horizon as Henyard faces federal charges. The fallout from her actions continues to reverberate throughout Dalton. The town, already in a financial crisis, must now contend with the staggering costs of her alleged corruption and the deepening distrust in its leadership. Residents are left to pick up the pieces, wondering how they got to this point and what it will take to rebuild the town's shattered financial reputation. The saga of Henyard's rise and fall is far from over. Federal authorities continue to piece together the full extent of the alleged corruption, and with Carlisle's testimony and other evidence, it's clear that this investigation will have far-reaching consequences. As more details emerge, the people of Dalton are left hoping that justice will finally be served and that they will be able to rebuild from the wreckage left by Henyard's reckless spending and self-serving behavior in the end. Henyard's scandal serves as a stark reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and the importance of holding public officials accountable. The people of Dalton have paid a heavy price for Henyard's actions, but her downfall may ultimately pave the way for a brighter, more transparent future for the town. Only time will tell whether the scandal will spark the changes needed to restore faith in Dalton's government, or if it will simply be another chapter in the town's troubled history. Mayor Tiffany Henyard's fall from grace has become a powerful symbol of corruption, manipulation, and the devastating consequences of unchecked power. Once a figure of wealth and authority, Henyard lived a life of luxury, traveling in first-class comfort with personal makeup artists and a lifestyle funded by taxpayer money. Now, she finds herself in the cold, stark environment of a jail cell, her once glamorous image shattered, her finances in ruins, and her future uncertain. Reports have surfaced that she can no longer afford to pay her legal bills, which has led to her lawyer abandoning her case. Her rise to power, clouded by controversy, was driven by a web of, to this point, and what it will take to rebuild the town's shattered financial reputation. Influence and financial mismanagement that didn't happen overnight. Over the years, Henyard allegedly used her position not to serve the people who elected her, but to benefit herself, all while the needs of the community went unmet. As more evidence continues to emerge of her abuse of public funds and opaque financial dealings within her administration, the residents of Dalton are left to reckon with the lasting damage caused by her alleged actions. Her eventual surrender to the authorities, while a glimmer of hope for accountability, marks only the beginning of a long road to restore trust and rebuild the town left in tatters. The decline of Henyard's once powerful and dominant image has been swift and unforgiving. Her history of financial recklessness and self-serving decisions led to a significant erosion of Dalton's finances. Reports indicate the town is now nearly $20 million in debt, with millions of dollars missing and unaccounted for. As the financial crisis deepened under Henyard's rule, residents became desperate. In a dramatic move to salvage the town, Dalton hired former Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot at a hefty rate of $400 per hour to clean up the mess Henyard had created. This unprecedented step underscores the dire state of Dalton's finances and highlights just how far the town had fallen under her leadership. Among Henyard's most egregious acts was her reported spending of $440,000 in a single day on Amazon, an emblem of her unchecked financial mismanagement that has now brought Dalton under federal and state scrutiny. As the town's finances spiraled out of control, the Illinois state controller had no choice but to step in, halting Dalton's desperately needed payments of $135,000. For the residents, this was a crippling blow, leaving them struggling to see a way forward. Even after Henyard's resignation and subsequent surrender to federal authorities, the financial ruin she left behind continues to cast a shadow over Dalton, making it clear that recovery would not be swift. But the financial destruction is not where the damage ended. Former employees of Henyard's administration have come forward with their own damning allegations, including lawsuits claiming wrongful termination for refusing to participate in dubious schemes. One such employee, identified as Boone Trish, is now suing Henyard, further adding to the legal and ethical challenges the disgraced mayor faces. These lawsuits are not just a result of Henyard's financial scandals. They also stem from her abusive leadership style, which created a toxic and oppressive environment for those who worked under her beyond the financial malfeasance. Henyard's administration has also been tainted by a series of disturbing allegations of sexual impropriety during city visits, including claims of sexual assault against staff members and accusations of intimidation against those who dared to oppose her. These revelations have decimated her previously polished image, replacing it with a portrait of an administration steeped in corruption, abuse of power, and exploitation. The public's outrage has only deepened as these new allegations have come to light, leaving Dalton residents shaken and disgusted by the woman they once trusted to lead them for the people of Dalton. The sight of Henyard in handcuffs has been a moment of relief. It represents a step toward reclaiming their town from what many have referred to as an era of doom. However, Henyard's surrender has raised as many questions as it has answered. Many speculate that her decision to turn herself in may be part of a larger strategy, perhaps an attempt to manipulate the system in her favor. Some believe she may be negotiating for a settlement or even trying to shield others involved in her schemes. Her continued presence as mayor, despite the mounting criminal charges against her, has raised serious concerns about the integrity of the legal system and the power dynamics at play in Dalton. The fact that Henyard has remained in office despite the overwhelming evidence against her suggests that the fight for accountability is far from over. Her defiance and apparent unwillingness to relinquish her position as mayor have only fueled suspicions that she might still be attempting to manipulate the system for her benefit. This, in turn, has only heightened the sense of urgency among Dalton's residents, who are desperately seeking closure and the restoration of their community's dignity. While Henyard's surrender has marked a symbolic turning point for the town, it has not provided immediate relief from the financial devastation she left behind. The process of recovering from years of financial mismanagement, broken trust, and the emotional toll of her alleged misconduct will be long and difficult. Despite these challenges, residents of Dalton are determined to reclaim their town and rebuild what was lost under Henyard's rule. The road to recovery will be complex. The financial wreckage left behind by Henyard's lavish spending must be untangled, and the town will have to address the emotional fallout from the abuse of power that occurred under her leadership. Rebuilding trust in local leadership will take time, and the community will have to work hard to ensure that future leaders are held to higher standards of transparency and accountability as the legal proceedings unfold and more truths come to light. Dalton residents are beginning to see a path forward. The scandal that once engulfed their town is beginning to fade into history, and with it comes the possibility of a fresh start. While Henyard's downfall has not solved all of the town's problems, it has opened the door to real change. A chance to shift away from the chaos and corruption of the past toward a future based on honesty and integrity. The demise of Tiffany Henyard has become a pivotal moment in Dalton's history, marking the end of an era of financial mismanagement, corruption, and exploitation. It signals the beginning of the town's fight for justice, stability, and a renewed sense of hope for the future. The question now is whether Dalton can seize this opportunity for real change. Will the town be able to rebuild a stronger, more united future? Or will the damage done by Henyard's reign prove too difficult to overcome in the wake of Henyard's fall? Residents are asking themselves whether they can truly put the scandal behind them. For years, they've lived under the weight of corruption and scandal. But the possibility of turning the page brings a renewed sense of optimism. With transparency, accountability, and a commitment to rebuilding from the ground up, Dalton has a chance to recover. Whether or not they can rise from the ashes of this scandal will depend on the strength and resilience of the community as they work toward healing and progress. Henyard's scandal has left a deep scar on the town, but it also represents an opportunity for redemption. The legal proceedings against her are far from over, and with each new revelation, Dalton inches closer to the truth. Whether or not justice will prevail remains to be seen, but one thing is clear. The people of Dalton are ready to reclaim their future and restore the community they once believed in.